I'm calling it. I heard like you and I think Matt had said that you were like Christian evangelicals.
I was.
Yeah, for a long time.
I was conservative, not evangelical. So just to.
Oh yeah, I know Matt wanted to be a preacher himself.
He did, yes.
I grew up as Catholic. I didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in Colombia, South America.
Okay.
Which was Catholic. And you know, Catholics are more like you guys are more like, let's read what the good book says, quotations. Whereas Catholics are like, no, let the experts interpret for you what the good book says. So my path to atheism was when I was around 12 years old, in religion class, I was there was a discussion between my religion teacher and another student about a matter. I think it was about the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount.
Right. Blessed are the meek. Just for the people who don't know, blessed are the meek. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are, it's all
the cheesemakers.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you saw Life of Brian, they made.
And they were having an argument, and I jumped in to defend my teacher. And we were like I was defending, and this other classmate basically made a counter argument that was really devastated. Basically demolished my argument, and I felt embarrassed. I was like completely. I was embarrassed, and I was 12 years old. So when you're 12 years old, you're very vulnerable. So then when I went home and I was like swimming in this embarrassment and thinking he proved me wrong basically, and that's how I started thinking, well, I'm wrong about this, I am wrong about the same thing, about many other things, but my problem was about coping to being wrong. It was difficult for me, accepting I was wrong. I'm wrong about this, and the difficulty about changing your mind, and that's how kind of. Discovering that I was wrong about one thing, and then accepting it, and then discovering I was wrong about another thing, and accepting that I was wrong, and then furthering along until I was about, 16 years old when I discovered maybe I'm wrong about this whole thing about the religion.
Yes.
And but it's difficult. It's a very tortuous path. It's tough. And I'm discovering that a lot of people friends that I know, that they kind of agree with me on some of the reasonable concepts, but it's very difficult for them to accept that they're wrong about something. And then it's difficult to accept the change of mind. I find it difficult to accept that I'm wrong about something still, and I'm 52 years old, and I still things are it wrestle with change of mind, but then you change your mind. You have to accept that you're wrong. And I just I think that's one of the difficulties. We have I remember, Tracie, you mentioned something about foreclosed identities.
Yes.
Where someone is not open to other avenues.
Right.
Even if you're presented with something that's very conclusive, it's just no. But I also find that there are people that they kind of accept certain conclusions, but it's difficult for them to, just accept that they're wrong and that they can change, that it's acceptable for them to change their mind. And I just wanted you to, your comments about that.
I do think it's important that people understand it's acceptable to change their minds. And I think that it's dangerous to have an attitude that you can't change your mind or that you can't be wrong about a thing. And that you're right, the foreclosed identity discussion was pretty much that, with the idea of shutting down on an identity before you've actually investigated it thoroughly. And when that happens, you are less likely to be open to new information, because you will defend that identity in very weird ways sometimes. Because that's when you hear arguments that don't make sense, and you're going, "What, this person don't they even hear themselves? This is such a bizarre thing that they're saying to defend this." And usually that is because they don't really understand themselves why they hold the position, because they closed on it before they had an actual grasp of what it was they were closing on. If a person has a more robust opinion, right? Like if they've got a more well-researched and well-informed opinion about what they believe, that person has more of a tendency to understand why they believe it, so that when you present information to them that undermines their position, they recognize that right away. And they'll say, wow, okay, well, wait a minute, because I was going off of this data over here that I had seen, but if that's not valid, or if there's been new data that changes that, that affects the outcome, right? So then you're more open to saying, oh, let me go back and look at this, because you researched it to get to where you were, and so you're more willing to re-examine it to change it.
Yeah, it's difficult because of course, when you're a teenager, it's even tougher when like you're called out in public that you're wrong and you made a fool of you made.
It's not. It doesn't feel much better when you're older and in private. It's still not a good feeling. Right. But I understand, and I think most people that have deconverted have had that experience. I don't think that's a rare thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, what I find is that I have friends now as an adult, and I have friends that they're reasonable people, and they're friends, they're close friends, and we have an emotional connection. But even then, I can tell, I can kind of sense, and I don't want to call them out too hard, but I can sense that they're realizing that. That I'm presenting them a path to reaching a different conclusion is tough for them to accept. I mean, I have a friend, and she's much younger than me, which usually younger people are more open to
sometimes
change. But she was asking me about why do I believe what I believe, and I said I don't want to be too hard on her, but one of the comforts I reached when I was a teenager was that I came to this essay by Bertrand Russell, is Why I'm Not a Christian. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, I think most people are. Yeah.
And so, back decades in Colombia, this is a Catholic country, and being an atheist in a Catholic country, or back then was very Catholic, is very lonely.
Yeah.
So when you hear great thinkers kind of sort of aligning what you think, you feel comfort. You're like, okay, I'm not an idiot. I'm not stupid. Everyone is calling you stupid, but I'm really not dumb. So I gave her this essay, just to read it, and she said, I really don't agree with it. But then when we delved into it, she really said, well, I kind of agree with this point, and then with this point, and with this point. But in the end, she just could not come to terms that well, this guy is making the same points I'm reaching, but I still can't. It's a difficult path.
It's a process for sure.
Yeah, it's a process. It's not. You don't become an atheist overnight, and it's not. It's
right.
It's not an easy choice.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling and sharing your experience, Randall.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks.
Take care.